So thank you for being here. Like I said, I really want you to walk away from this today feeling empowered and inspired that floral design is really about starting where you are and using what you have. And there is so much beauty when you lean into what is available to you and you lean into what your strengths are. So what I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to be completing hopefully we'll complete, we may not get to the very end, but we'll get close. I'm going to be making a centerpiece compote for you today. This is something that you would put like in the middle of a table, like if you're having a dinner party. I'm going to actually focus on designing it one-sided just for time's sake today. Normally, if you're doing this, and I'll show you how it'll work, you're going to want to work front and back as you go. I have mine elevated on a cake stand. I actually normally would have this on the countertop, so this was really sitting at like eye level for me. The benefit to that is you're seeing it as you would when you're sitting down. So as much as you can, always elevate your vessel, and it makes it a lot easier as you're designing. In fact, I really wish this was like right here, but we're going to roll with what we have. Start where you are, right? So what I have is, this is just a milk glass compote. This is actually from Goodwill. And then I have a floral frog scent and some water. Oh, I didn't put water in my vase too. Way to go. My floral frog is pinned in the bottom. You can find the floral frogs any craft store. Goodwill's another great place to find these. And then you use your floral adhesive to do kind of a pin tuck fold around the edge. You can see that it's kind of overhanging. And then you take this down into your vessel and use like a folded towel and push it down really, really firmly so you get a tight seal on that putty. The other thing you can do, this is going to sound crazy, but it does work. I actually will put this on the floor and put my toe and with my shoe on and stand on it. I've never had a vessel break. Trust me, I've done this so many times, never broken a vessel standing on it. It gets you a really tight, secure hold. So the purpose of the pin tuck frog, or the pin frog, is to give you something to kind of create your foundation. Like this is going to hold your pieces in your vessel. So once you have your frog egg here, you're ready for water. If you don't have a floral frog, another really great tool for floral design is to take a piece of chicken wire and do kind of an accordion fold with it and smash it down into your vessel. And what that does is it holds, it holds your stems in place and it keeps them down in the water and from falling out, especially if you're working in a shallower vessel. Right, so normally you would have filled your vessel with water, just like I'm doing now. You want it to be about 2/3 full because you're going to displace some of the water as you're designing. Always start with clean, fresh water. Always start with a clean vessel. Just keep your floral frogs clean. You can scrub them out with like a stiff bristle brush. And then you're ready to design. So I really, really, really love that this time of year, number one, is a really great time of year for getting out and just really looking at what is growing all around you. Here in the Pacific Northwest, we are really, really lucky to have an incredible, incredible variety of everything right now, especially this time of year. But even if you're in the Midwest, even if it's cold there still, I really want to encourage you to get out and look with that seeing eye, because beauty is all around you. And I think so often we get so used to seeing something that it kind of becomes common to us and we lose that connection with the beauty of it. So I'm going to challenge you and encourage you, get out today, take a walk, look what's in your backyard, look what's growing along the side of the road. Beauty really is all around us. It's just being willing to kind of step back and see it in a intentional way. So what I have today, I really wanted to empower you with this piece of like, you've got what it takes to create something really dynamic and beautiful. Almost all of this was foraged. I have a few little fancy bits that are extra that I brought in from a flower farm down the road, but really this is things that are growing not on our production flower farm. Really, we're not in production yet. These are things that I pulled out of our perennial beds. These are things that I pulled out of the woods next to our house, some flowers I grabbed from my friend's yard. So this is what is available to you. So look with that seeing eye to see the beauty that's there. Even though it's common, it's still so beautiful. I'm not going to go over each of the flowers at the beginning. I'm just going to talk about it as I go. So principles of floral design. When you're working with any vessel, you want to think about the size of the vessel versus the size, or to the size of your arrangement. So you can think in thirds about that. This vessel, if we can think about it being a third here in the center, we're going to want to go about a third to the side and a third to the side, and you'll get a really nice balance that way. Same with the height of your vessel. So if this is a third of our vessel, we wouldn't want to go more than 2/3 taller than our vessel. Otherwise, it starts to feel like, I don't know, I always get this mental picture of my kids when they were tiny, when they were like toddlers, and they would go, or preschoolers, and go put on the baby shoes and tiptoe around in them. So like tiny little vase, big giant bouquet, it doesn't feel balanced. Same if you have a huge vase and a little tiny arrangement, it doesn't feel balanced. So that's one thing to think about when you're working with your vessel. The other thing to think about is the purpose of what your design is for. So like this one, we're gonna pretend it's gonna go on, it probably will go on our table when I get home. And when you're designing, you want to think about the height of it, especially if it's going to be on a table where people are going to be sitting around it and eating. So we use the elbow rule. So if you put your elbow to your vessel, you really don't want to go more than an arm's length high. That's because when you're seated at the table, that's naturally where people will be able to see over the top. So some ideas with balancing with size and shape. I really think that my favorite philosophy for floral design is to mimic nature. It's already so perfectly and wonderfully made. To be able to capture that and bring that in, I think just brings a really unique beauty to any floral design. So when I design, I think about mimicking nature. So when you look outside, you typically see things go heavier to lighter. So like mountains, bigger and heavier on the bottom to lighter on the top, trees, bigger and heavier to lighter. So your floral design, you kind of want to build it to light, heavier towards the bottom, lighter towards the top. Also mimicking nature, I always start with greens first. You think about this time of year, we see the greens flush and then we see the flowers come on. So I always start with a greenery foundation. I think that it just lends to that like really lush garden feel on a centerpiece. So today I have all kinds of really fun forage little bits that I'm going to be tucking in. If you're local to the Pacific Northwest, this is one of my favorite things to use in floral design. This is salmonberry greens. It grows everywhere. It has this beautiful shape and chartreuse color. It gets a little darker over the season. And I love for this design, especially this contrasting more red brown. I think it kind of pulls some of the other red browns that we're going to be working with. When you start your floral design, you want to start with your woody stems first. So anything that's really big and bulky, you want to put it in first so that there's room for the other things, right? Kind of like in life, put in the heavy, weighty, important things first, and there'll be room for the other things later. So when you're designing, you're going to really want to go, remember we talked about like leaning into your strengths in whatever you do. With floral design, it kind of works that same way with your flowers. They really have a way that they're going to want to lay or drape or sit. Don't fight that, really work with that. If you fight with it, it really begins to look unnatural. So if you've got a flower that really wants to drape and hang and you're trying to make it rigid and upright, it's going to feel forced. So really work with what you have in the direction that it wants to go. So I am thinking about kind of building out my foundation. As I work in my vessel, I can't tip it now and show you, but if you can picture, well, I've got a floral frog here. If you can picture in your floral frog, you really want to try to work on filling your stems in on the outside edges first as you're tucking them in. The reason why is that's going to leave, it's going to create that kind of woven, like threaded stems in the center that are going to hold up your other stems. It's also going to leave you room for those more delicate stems as you weave them in. So I'm thinking about that as I come in and tuck this into the edge. And again, I'm just really honestly trusting in myself and leaning into that, like just go where it leads you. I think that's another really big part with floral design. I was telling myself as I was driving here and getting ready, like don't have an expectation in your head of how it's going to look. I think that so often, this is a lesson I'm learning over and over and over again in life, is that when we go into things with this really strong preconceived notion of it's got to turn out this certain way or look this certain way or be this certain way, it really limits what it could be. And then we're disappointed with what it is. So same with floral design. I think when you can walk into it, I mean, every time your flowers are going to be different. Every time your greens are going to lay different. If you can walk into it without a preconceived expectation of that it's got to finish looking like this and just kind of play with the flowers and go where they lead you, it's going to really, truly shine. So I'm giving myself grace for that today too.